Hello, Molweni, Sanu Hujambo. I'm Thembekile Mrototo. Welcome to UNWRAP Africa, where every week we focus on the latest news, trends and successes of the African continent. Siakaka. Coming up tonight, urban farmers in Kinshasa, the bustling capital of the DRC, are battling threats to their livelihoods amid the city's explosive population boom. And then later, Ghana and Burkina Faso seal 7 fresh bilateral agreements. We'll get the view of Professor Simphiwe Madikizela from the University of South Africa's College of Economics and Management Sciences about what this will mean, not just for the region, but the continent more broadly. We also want to hear your thoughts this evening, as always, and we're asking tonight, could the killing of the M23 rebel group spokesperson break the fragile ceasefire in the Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo? We'll take those thoughts. SABC UNWRAP Africa is where we are on Facebook. You can also find us on X, where our handle is SABC News_TV. Now let's look at the main stories from the continent this week.
So far, the confirmation we have from our Ukrainian counterparts is that there are 2 Ghanaians who are being held as prisoners of war.
Ghana's Foreign Minister Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa has urged Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky to release 2 Ghanaian prisoners of war who were captured fighting for Russia. Russia's invasion of Ukraine in 2022 has drawn foreign fighters on both sides of the conflict, including from several African countries, including, by the way, South Africa. Speaking of South Africa, 11 South African men who were allegedly duped into fighting for Russia in the war with Ukraine are now back home. The men landed at the King Moshoeshoe International Airport in Durban this week. They were trapped in Ukraine's Donbas region since November last year. Guinea's military has confirmed the detention of 16 Sierra Leone soldiers accused of crossing the border and raising their flag on Guinean soil. Freetown maintains its troops were on its own territory in this latest flare-up in a decades-old territorial dispute. A Zambian politician has been arrested allegedly over a fake image posted on Facebook showing the country's president lying in a casket. According to reports, preliminary information revealed that the Secretary General of the National Democratic Congress, that's Mambwe Zimba, was one of the administrators of that Facebook page. A new documentary about Maurice Peloche has allowed former clients of the Congolese photographer to rediscover their portraits taken decades ago. The documentary, titled Maurice Peloche, Memory in Images, honors the legacy of a rare 1970s portrait photographer. Well, in the DRC, urban farmers in the capital of the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kinshasa, are facing a threat to their livelihoods. It's because of a rapid growth in the population in the city. Private developers are constructing buildings on land that was used for farming to meet the huge demand for housing. SABC correspondent Chris Oshamuringa has more from Kinshasa.
Bernadette Babela has been growing vegetables on this land on the outskirts of Kinshasa for over 2 decades. She's managed to raise her children off the proceeds from her farm.
One of my children is an engineer and another is an agronomist. The last one studied at a technical institution and is now farming in another part of the country.
But the city's rapid growth is threatening the livelihood of urban farmers like her. Kinshasa is one of Africa's most densely populated cities, with an estimated population of 17 million people. The rising population has eaten into spaces used for cultivation.
We are against the construction of residential houses in our center because we are here to support our population by growing food. Some of us raise pigs and chickens, which nourish them.
The huge demand for housing has led landowners to sell agricultural land to private developers. That has had a negative impact on the yields of some of these farmers.
So many people have constructed houses in our neighbourhood, and when it rains heavily, a nearby river overflows and destroys all of our crops.
The crops they grow help feed the millions of Congolese who can't afford to buy imported foodstuffs. Small-scale farmers like these are under pressure to get agricultural land elsewhere due to the rapid urbanization of Kinshasa. The construction of commercial and residential houses has become a huge threat to their livelihood here. Most of these farmers are uncertain about their future as agricultural land shrinks and eviction threats grow. Urban planners are calling on authorities to safeguard agricultural areas to ensure national food availability.
I think the big thing the government has to do is to change the mindset of people, to have to protect all those strategic lands. It's like to avoid not allow people to buy those lands for construction. If they buy those lands, they have only to do agriculture inside.
According to government figures, the DRC has about 80 million hectares of arable land, but only 10% of it is under cultivation. Armed conflicts have forced millions of farmers in the country's east to abandon their livelihood. In 2024, the DRC government launched an agricultural program in 145 territories to transform the living conditions of its population through sustainable farming. But the ongoing conflict has made the government redirect funds to the war effort, and that has hampered the program's full implementation. And so farmers in urban areas like Kinshasa have few options but to continue working the fields, hoping authorities will come to their rescue and protect farmland from being sold to private developers. Chris Ochamringa, SABC News, Kinshasa.
Well, then, as Africa recovers from the negative impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, the continent is expected to host many international conferences as well as other events. This week, South Africa has been hosting the Meetings Africa Gathering, the 20th conference held in Sandton at the Convention Centre in Johannesburg. UNWRAP Africa correspondent Sophie Mukwena managed to catch up with South Africa's Tourism Minister Patricia de Lille and the CEO of Mozambique's Tourism Board, Richard Baulene, at the event.
Yes, we have got like 53 countries from around the world, and we have got 21 African countries represented. And I said we must work harder next year. We can't have 21 out of 55. So next year we will be trying to bring many of them for the first time. Because, yes, competition is good amongst ourselves as African countries. We've got the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. That's not just about goods, it's also about people. But this is an opportunity to show Africa to the world, because and the opportunities and our capabilities. And that's the value for all of us here while we're competing amongst ourselves here.
And finally, Minister, what can you expect in the coming months in terms of the Department of Tourism? We can see that you are working very hard to ensure that the sector is alive and well post-COVID.
Yes, definitely. The first thing I'm going to do is that I'm going to release publicly 51 conferences that will be hosted in our country, all over the country, from our small dorpies to our cities to our towns, to show that we get value for the investment, because we had to bid and we put in 100 bids, and so far we've been successful with 55. So the South Africans can see that we're spreading events across that. But then, of course, now it's the Live Golf coming. After Live Golf, we've got 2 jazz festivals, the International Jazz Festival, our own South African one. We've got the Swiss one, Montreux, also happening at the same time. There's such a lot of things happening. And then, of course, we need to prepare now for hosting the World Economic Forum of Davos for next year. And then we also have the Cricket World Cup coming next year. So we've got lots of work to do. But the economic impact, you know, the economic impact for last year, 2025, Meetings Africa was 690 million rand added to our economy and our GDP.
Meetings Africa is very important fair for us to participate as one of the most important show related to the maize sector. In this moment, Mozambique is in the process of approval of his strategy, or maize strategy in this moment in the process of approval in the Council of Ministers. So after approval of our maize strategy, we will start, we are in the process of creating our Bureau of Conventions. So we thought that this Meetings Africa, of course, would be a very important platform for us to come and share experience with other countries like South Africa, for instance, who are advanced in this process of implementing the tourism of events, expositions and exhibitions. And we have a lot to learn in these Meetings Africa. We're also planning to have partnerships with Rwanda and other countries. So, of course, Meetings Africa is one of the priority platforms for us to have more experience on how to implement our maize strategy in Mozambique.
It comes at a time where the country, Mozambique, did experience floods. How has that affected tourism in your country?
You mean flood?
The floods, the storms, how have they affected tourism sector?
Yes, unfortunately we had this situation in the mid-January this year. Floods that in a very intensive way affected tourism sector because the roads were cut in different parts, especially the main road which connects the southern part, Maputo, and the southern provinces with the central province and the north, has been affected critically. And also some of the roads which connect the main borders to the main cities, not only Maputo but also Vilankulo and some other parts, have been affected, which of course reduces the mobility of tourists and visitors and people. So yes, it affects our tourism sector because yes, it reduces the number of people visiting, coming into Mozambique. But our government is doing its best to fix the damages that we had, especially in roads and in streets. Things are now getting better. It's possible to travel from Maputo to Vilankulo to Basotho, the central part of the country, which was not possible soon after we had that floods.
Let's remind you of our question tonight. Could the killing of the M23 rebel group spokesperson in the DRC break the fragile ceasefire in the east of the country? Let's look at your responses. One here says the killing of the M23 spokesperson, Willy Ngoma, marks a significant shift. Kinshasa is using drone capability to target leadership nodes. This is no longer just militia maneuver warfare. It is targeted decapitation strategy. North Kivu remains a live fault line. Calvin Mbiza says that this will make the situation worse in the DRC. Not so long ago, they signed a peace agreement, but the assassination of Willy Ngoma will make the situation worse, and the innocent civilians will be in big trouble because of the government in Kinshasa. Michael Kabongo says this is nothing compared to the number of lives that him and his M23 claimed. One last one says Trump is telling us he brokered a peace deal in that region. And Congo will avenge the SANDF soldiers killed by the M23 thanks to our brothers from SADC. And that's us looking in terms of your responses then to the possible implications of the killing of the M23 armed group spokesperson in the DRC. We'll continue to keep a close eye on the situation in the region, especially the stability of the ceasefire itself, right here on UNWRAP Africa. Well, thanks for staying with UNWRAP Africa this Sunday evening. Ghana and Burkina Faso have now signed 7 new bilateral agreements. They're aimed at strengthening trade, improving border governance and deepening security cooperation. One of the agreements aims to protect youth and regional security in a joint no-drug zone. Professor Simphiwe Madikizela from the College of Economics and Management Sciences Department of Economics at the University of South Africa joins us now to talk more about this. A very good evening to you, sir. Thank you so much for being on UNWRAP Africa. So Ghana and Burkina Faso signing these 7 agreements. How formidable a partnership is it, especially on issues of trade and indeed fighting insecurity?
Thank you so much. Good evening to you, Thembekile, and your viewers. And it's a great opportunity to be here. So I think this is a very progressive and positive development in the context of regional trade. We need to promote regional trade in general in the continent. So I think this is a positive step of development. We welcome the agreement and the bilateral agreement signed. I think it's positive, it's progressive, we welcome it.
And is it a step towards then increased self-reliance for the region?
Yes, it is indeed. You would remember that there's been reliance on the European countries, including America, the AGOA, and we know with the current president now of America, Donald Trump, with his tariffs, where he's always threatening. So I think it's a wake-up call for the continent in Africa to be self-reliant and self-dependent and actually improve and encourage trade between ourselves, the countries in the continent. I think in that context, we welcome this.
And it's a mixed bag, right? They're looking at issues of trade. They're also looking at issues of border management, insecurity, all sort of lumped into one bag, if you will, Prof, in these 7 agreements. What do you think is perhaps the greatest threat, the greatest obstacle in terms of the implementability, if that is even a word, of this raft of deals?
Yes, I think we welcome it in many areas. First of all, border control is crucial and critical, and we know that there are always opportunists that take advantage. Things like illicit trade, the drugs that get moved if the borders are not controlled properly. So I think for security, this is important. We need stability, we need security. Also transport trade, between the countries. We know that Burkina Faso strategically is positioned as a gateway, right? So we'll benefit quite a lot here connecting with Ghana there. Issues of youth, as you've mentioned, it's important. The youth, the young people, they tend to be high in terms of unemployment. They are the future leaders. So we need to be intentional and deliberate to involve them, include them, to participate in the economy, in the trade, as they are future leaders of these countries.
And on the issue of young people, it's important because Africa is a young continent, yet it is still, like many other parts of the world, it must be said, run by people who are in the twilight years of their lives, right? So are there lessons to be learned then for the continent more broadly from what Ghana and Burkina Faso have proposed?
Yes, most definitely. There are very good lessons to be learned. And I think what we are sometimes known of, we are good in signing agreements, we are good in coming with policies, programs that are very good on paper. The crux is always on implementation, execution. So I'm hoping that we can implement, execute speedily with a sense of urgency because talk is cheap, as they normally say. But we need to implement. We need to get our hands dirty. So I'm hoping that we are going to be quick off the ground in terms of implementation, execution, so that we can see the benefits. Because unless we implement, we don't want to see the benefits that we intend to receive from these agreements.
And will Ghana and Burkina Faso benefit equally from what has been agreed? Or does one side stand to gain more than the other?
I think in general, the agreements will be mutually beneficial for both countries. But like I said, Burkina Faso strategically is seen as a gateway. So because of the location and the connection that it has with other countries, there could be spillover effects. There could be more benefits for them. But I think in general, even Ghana, they will benefit themselves both in this agreement. I think that's the spirit, that's the context of the agreement, of the negotiations that really came into these agreements being signed end of February.
I want to pick up on the point that you've made, I think more than once now, about Burkina Faso being a gateway. We know Ghana is also a powerful economic player in the region. So in terms of the future of the region, say, both in the short, well, not both, but in the short, medium and longer term, what foundation is this going to lay then? And how do the other parts of the African continent then begin to either collaborate with this region or shore up the way in which they do business and look at the issues of immigration control as well as insecurity to make sure that the continent as a whole reaps benefit?
Yes, most certainly. I think, first of all, the two economies, that is Ghana and Burkina Faso, they have to expand, right, and grow, and therefore connect with other countries. And I hope the other countries are watching this very closely as a prototype, as almost like a case study that is tried and tested, or if you like, it's a POC, proof of concept, that this can be done. So once, hopefully, the other countries can jump into this, they can learn into this, they can actually duplicate this, replicate this in their own countries and connect and actually strengthen this, encourage it, support it, copy from it, replicate to the extent that it makes sense. Because broadly, the principles will be the same for all the countries. I mean, the other economies like Nigeria, for example, economy like South Africa, which is number one in the continent, and other economies, whether you're talking about DRC, whether you're talking about Uganda, which is known for coffee. DRC has got a lot of minerals, and many other countries, Egypt, all these countries, Kenya. So I'm hoping that the other countries will support this, will learn from this, will want to adopt and implement this in their own countries. In that way, then we can see the economies opening up, growing. Also, investing in infrastructure will be crucial and critical, and also to embrace technology. When you talk about border control and these issues, we need to use technology like drones, for example. Right. We can't rely on people just standing there in the border, manning the fence. That's got limitations. As much as that can be reinforced with people, because we're not create employment as well at the same time. But let's not be shy from embracing technology, AI, Internet of Things, blockchain. Because we're in the fourth industrial revolution now. So we have to embrace technology for us to be smarter, to be faster, to be efficient, to be cost effective as well, and also to be agile in terms of responding. This will send a message as well to the criminal, activity, the kingpins that are moving drugs and so on, that they should know that it's time now that there is law and order in these countries, that we take control. We've got law and order. We don't allow these illicit goods, drugs that destroy the economy, because also we don't get to benefit from the tax point of view. If these goods are illicit, it actually promotes, lawlessness. That's the last thing that we want, right?
Professor Simphiwe Madikizela, good to talk to you from the College of Economics and Management Sciences at the University of South Africa. Thank you for being on UNWRAP Africa. We're back with much more for you when we return. So King Moshoeshoe I's visionary leadership forged Lesotho's early liberation. It laid the foundations for unity and resilience. Africans have long embodied philanthropy, as seen in traditions like Letsema, for instance. That's where communal support uplifts society, or is at least meant to do so. Our producer, Nonhlanhla Mthembu, has been speaking to narrative alchemist Maema Morake about Lesotho's heritage. Take a listen.
Ke ngwana Mosotho, ke ngwana Moshoeshoe, I am ke Mokwena wa Ntsane ya Mnaheng.
What is it about Basotho that you think is outstanding amongst African giants?
Basotho are giants. Whether we like to admit it or not, they are giants. A small country, but gentle giants. So if you think about the story of King Moshoeshoe, and the feats that he had as conceivably the first well-recognized diplomat on the African continent. Moshoeshoe was able to get a country through peaceful methods, right? So he was a Pan-Africanist in that way. So I'm a Pan-Africanist in that way as well. And the legacy that Ndate Moshoeshoe has left for us has greatly influenced my Pan-African perspective, that it need not be retaliatory, that it need not be antagonistic, but that through collaboration, strategic collaboration, that we can achieve quite a lot. The Master of Management in African Philanthropy, and the idea is essentially to study what African philanthropy looks like and ways in which we've been practicing as Africans time immemorial, practicing philanthropy or having philanthropic and giving and gifting practices that we never called philanthropy. So when you think about what we conceive as horizontal philanthropy, we have done things like Litsema back in the day, where communities gather and they share the crop. It's not kept for one person. That's a form of philanthropy. What are we doing? What is the future of philanthropy on the continent? How do we collaborate and form strategic partnerships as a continent to have our own narrative, remind ourselves of what it is to be a giver, and then from an institutional perspective, be able to have conversations at an international level, professionally, in a scholarly way, in a meaningful and constructive way that builds our societies and our continent.
And that's how we come to the end of this week's edition of UNWRAP Africa. We're back with you at 8 p.m. next week right here on SABC News. Take care. Good night.